All right, in this video, we're going to walk through how to create an automated domain registration and DNS setup automation using Make and Airtable. So the purpose of this is if you're a cold email agency or if you're running a sales team and you're using a multi-domain, multi-inbox based strategy, you're often having to create domains and register them and set up all the DNS automatically or by hand rather. This is going to help you bypass that and do this extremely quickly. And you can do this at scale using a very awesome tool called dnsimple.com. They have an API for registering domains and setting up DNS. You can hook it up to Cloudflare and do all of your DNS management very simply, very quickly, and very affordably. So this video is going to walk you through what the domain registration portion of that looks like. I have an Airtable based setup here that I use for my agency. We have a tab here called domains. I have some clients here, so AeroSync Solutions and Binary Wave Analytics. And so we're going to walk through the demo for how you can check for domain name availability, register the domain in just a couple of clicks through Airtable. So I'll give you a quick example. We can check the price by clicking on these buttons here, and you can see that automation is quickly checking to make sure that the domains are available. And it's populating this Airtable base that you can then do subsequent actions on. So it's very quick. If I wanted to purchase this domain, I could go ahead and click buy on this. Now, I don't have a real client named AeroSync Solutions, so I'm not going to do that. But as soon as this gets clicked, this purchase indicator will flip over to purchased. It'll add information like the purchase date and give you information about the registration ID, the domain ID through this tool called dnsimple. It'll also indicate whether you've enabled auto renew, which is important if you're managing thousands of domains. Sometimes you'll want to know when that date is coming up and whether or not that domain has been set to auto renew. So this is a very useful dashboard here. I'm going to walk you through how we are doing this in Make. So first step is you're going to want to set up a webhook here. Make is different than Integromat. Every scenario that is a webhook needs its own webhook URL. So go ahead and generate that. We like to use naming conventions to keep track of our automations so that you always know what webhook is associated with what workflow or scenario. Try to make it very logical sounding. So for this one, it might be the name of the webhook itself would be dnsimple domain registration button. Same thing as the workflow. You're going to go ahead and set this up and grab. Mine is not set up that way because this is a demo, but go ahead and grab that URL. And you're going to want to create a button in Airtable called buy domain, check price and buy domain. And you can set up that webhook URL to go in right here. You're going to populate that webhook button with a formula. It's going to be a concatenate formula, and it's going to concatenate that make webhook URL with the domain record ID coming from Airtable. So I have a formula field set up here in Airtable that pulls the record ID from this domain name here. So I have that record ID. I can then operate on that record using different APIs. Very useful. So I'm going to go ahead and hide that. And we'll come back to the button here. So you're going to want to concatenate that webhook URL with the domain record ID, and then also pass in this request type equals availability. So in the other button, the purchase button, we've set up a formula here, and you'll notice that the request type here is purchase. The reason for that is because we have some conditional logic in this flow that will do different things depending on which button has been pressed. So in this example, if you press the check availability button, it's going to go down this path here where the request type is equal to availability. And we're going to use the dnsimple API to register that domain. Check the availability for that domain. And here's the API call. dnsimple's API docs are on their website, so you can quickly kind of check this and make sure that this is correct. But it's basically going to be api.dnsimple.com v2 your DN Simple account ID, registrar, domains, the domain name that you want to register, and this is coming from that Airtable record /check. That's going to check the availability, and it's going to return a price and whether or not that domain is available for purchase through their premium pricing option. You definitely want to avoid those domains. It doesn't make sense to purchase expensive domains for cold email, particularly because you're going to probably do this 100 or 1,000 times. So here's the API call. You need an authorization header and your API key. This is not my real API key, so don't bother stealing this because I've changed it. But you're also going to need an accepts header, and that accept header is set to application/JSON. Body type is raw, content type, application JSON, parse response is always set to yes. So that's how you check the availability. We have a filter then set up for if the DN Simple API returns true, then it's going to route down this path, and we're going to call another API call here for checking the price. And that's what's going to return that price right here. And that's very useful for, again, filtering out those domains that cost $30 or $300 or $3,000. So you definitely want to filter those out. So in that check price API, same base API URL, you're going to need your account ID again under registrar, domains. Everything is the same except for this prices modifier here. So again, we're just checking the price there. That's really all you need. And then what we're going to do is update that in Airtable and mark that as available. And we're going to set that availability, and we're going to set the price. And then once those two things are populated, this button unlocks. So we've set a formula here that says if availability is available and annual price is less than $15, then make this button clickable. And again, that button is just that original webhook URL concatenated to the domain record ID and where the request type is purchase. And that brings us to our next path. Actually, one quick thing. So if after you check the availability of the domain, if it's not available, then we're going to want to mark that in Airtable as unavailable. So if that data is false or availability is false, then mark that record in Airtable as unavailable. Now, if you do get a cheap available domain, you can click buy domain here, and that's going to route it down this path, where the request type is set to purchase, and you're going to go ahead and purchase that domain. So again, the same base API URL, domain name, registrations, and you're just passing, it's a post request, and you're passing that registrant ID, which is, again, changed, but pass your own registrant ID, and that's going to associate you as an organization, as a DN Simple user. It's going to allow you to purchase that domain. It's also going to return some data back about the domain that you've purchased there, which we can then store in Airtable using these fields here for DN Simple registration ID, domain ID, and auto renew. I always try to store all of those ID values and all of that information because you never know when that's going to be useful. And if you decide to build out additional automations on top of this, like maybe you set up the DNS in Cloudflare, or you're setting up an automated renewal system, or actually here's a great example. If a client churns, you're going to want to automate the process of disabling auto renew for all of their domains, right? You don't want to keep paying for those domains, which you probably can't use for any other client because they're probably branded to AeroSync solutions, right? So there's use cases that can be built on top of this that you're going to want to keep and retain that ID information for. And that is pretty much it. So pretty simple automation, but saves a ton of time. It's especially useful now that Google Domains is no longer selling domains. It's got bought by Squarespace. So DN Simple is a good automated way to purchase new domains and use them for cold email. We have another system, and I'll probably do another video on this, but you can auto-generate all of these different permutations for domains. You can also hook it up to a Slack button inside of Slack so that your client onboards, it generates 10 different permutations for domains. sends you Slack messages, and then you can click, purchase, 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 depending on the price and the availability. So there's a lot you can do here. Just another way to streamline your operations, especially if you're doing cold email, if you're running a cold email agency. So hope this was useful. Let me know if there's any way that we can improve the videos, and looking forward to your comments. Thanks.